Good evening, Wild Wild World, since this will be an evening show. Welcome to today's installment of T.B.D, our lovely show where we discuss things. Because why? It's called To Be Discussed. Now, for the month of June, we're trying to look at and think about media and what it can do for us. Because we obviously, all of us that are doing this, we enjoy content creation and we enjoy making things. And so it's critical, though, that you know what you're taking in and what that's doing for you. And so over the next few weeks in June, we want to take an emphasis on how certain media interacts with us. And so today's focus is going to be how, basically for us, what media we consume that encourages us to be loving and embracing to one another around us. There's media that we can consume that can do the opposite of that. They can have us to focus on negative things and hateful things. Or we can consume things that emphasize love and, embracing of one another, fellow human beings. And so that's really where we want to kick off our month of June in focusing on media and me, I guess. So, I guess, Catherine, how important do you think it is that you understand what you're taking in as far as media consumption?
I think it's super important. I mean, it's important anyways, like when you're talking about friendships, people that you spend time with. We know Proverbs tells us that iron strengthens iron, and so a man strengthens another man. And so if we're not paying attention to the friends that we have, if we're not paying attention to the physical interactions that we have with people, then we already pretty well understand that that's going to make it harder for us to be better people and better Christians. But I think sometimes we have this disconnect between our media choices and who we actually want to be. And we maybe forget that the same thing happens when we make poor choices in media, or when we choose media that has maybe a message that's counter to something that we would want to choose. And so it's important because on the one hand, anytime that you have anything that you're letting into your space, it's gonna have an effect on you. But on the other hand, the way we process information, the way we process our media, really, you can sneak a lot of messages into your media without even, like, somebody needs to be sneaking the message in. You may or may not be meaning to allow that message in for yourself. And so you just have to be on guard for what's there, what is intended to be there, and how is it affecting your morals, your choices in life.
What we want to do today, as I said, is focus on media and how it encourages us to be loving and kind and embracing towards others. And so how we wanted to do that is we each selected a piece of media that we feel personally we relate to that helps encourage us to be loving and kind to others and just embrace one another. And so I guess, Catherine, do you want to start off with that?
I found a song that I think the majority of us have all heard before. I decided to talk about You've Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story. I was singing about it, and the whole premise of this song is no matter what happens to you, I'm your friend and I'm here for you. And like some of the lyrics, he says, when the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old pal said, you've got a friend in me. And then the next verse, if you've got troubles, I've got them too. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you. We stick together and can see it through because you've got a friend in me. So that to me was impactful because For one, it's a kid's song, and it's a song that I listened to as a kid. And the more, like, we're talking about what you put in is what comes out. If you really grow up valuing friendships and valuing the people in your life, then as you get older, it just becomes easier to be that kind of friend, to be that kind of person. And so when I was thinking about it, I was like, that's one thing that makes it really important. But also, this concept of being a good friend is not always easy. People go through hard stuff. People hurt your feelings. People do things that you don't understand, sometimes hurtful things, sometimes things that you don't agree with, and maybe you even think it's wrong that they're doing it. But you always have a choice of how to react to them. And I think if we're not careful, we take things too far by cutting people out. If we don't offer the space for people to be able to come back and to be able to, to say, I remember I could rely on that person, I have a couple people that I know, they knew at one point that they could rely on me for anything. No matter how bad it was, no matter how hard it was, they knew that they could come back to me. And if I don't think that these friendships were ones that I intentionally severed or I intentionally closed off. I would hope that they would remember what kind of friendship we had and would be able to come back to me with something. But it's not like that would be easy for them or easy for me. But it's important that we have that kind of relationship with people in general. That's not even just the people that it's easy to be friends with, that's all of the people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard, and friendship is hard, and if you have been married, marriage is hard. If you've had parent-child relationships are hard. Sibling relationships are hard. All relationships are hard, and if we run from the hard relationships, we miss out on what those relationships were intended to be.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've felt very strongly that a lot of people think like you don't care or you don't love them as much if you're not like constantly in their life. And it's just like, it's the kind of world that we live in that we're not going to be connected to everyone. We have the ability to be. But like so many people, if you don't interact with them regularly or message them regularly or do any of these things, you're not like a good friend. But like, that just because I don't talk to someone regularly doesn't mean I'm less willing to go an extra mile for them. I mean, sure, I'd be very devoted to Lexi or Evan or any of my other close friends, but like those who I have known that I've had a friendship with in the past, like people don't just or shouldn't just dissipate in value once they leave our immediate frame. And it's really easy to do that, especially like more for you all college wise than for me, but for all of us definitely high school wise, those relationships most of those like just evaporate with life. But I saw someone from high school in the restaurant today, and against me, I wasn't great friends with this person at all. But small high school, we knew everybody, so I just decided to say hi anyway, because even though I wanted to be quiet. But yeah, I totally get that. That song, I definitely think that's an excellent song for encouraging love and how you should treat your fellow human being, not just your friends. Grant, what did you pick for your lovely little track? Or lovely piece of media? It doesn't have to be music.
I actually had a hard time narrowing down on the options that I thought up. But I think I'm going to take the very popular nowadays cop-out that is Avatar: The Last Airbender. And
I
specifically,
don't know if that's a cop out.
oh yeah, of course.
I knew
It's
it'd be
very
anime, though.
it's very popular right now because it just hit Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But
just
I'll
came back
point
to
out,
Netflix. By the way,
I watched it when I was
Good
like
show.
8, and I kept watching it. So, you know,
Yeah,
I'm
same.
no poser.
We actually bought the
He's
entire
OG.
season
Yeah, it
pretty
was
early
50
after we
bucks.
got married, and we watched through it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so go ahead.
Anyway, specifically, I'm thinking of our favorite uncle, Uncle Iroh, and his wise platitudes, and I'm thinking about his mentalities that even though there are differences that we perceive between people, we are ultimately not all that different, and we can come to understand each other. And we can come to treat each other as equals, even though we come from different places, different cultures, different backgrounds. It's not someone's culture or how adjacent that culture is to yours that creates their worth as a person and creates whether or not they are deserving of your love as a human being. It is the fact that they are your fellow human being that makes them worthy of your love and of your respect. And I said like I had trouble narrowing down what piece of media I was going to want to highlight, but there's also a book that I had read, and it started as a story on Wattpad, and it got published and became a New York Times best-selling series. And the book was called The Division of the Marked. And I won't go into the story of the book, but the part that I'm talking about is a man has the ability to sense the feelings of people that he loves. That's like his specific power. He can sense the feelings, the emotional state of people who he loves. And he's part of like this order of elite specialist people, whatnot. So they're trying to use this ability to figure out a mystery, figure out a culprit of a crime. And so they have to sort of expand his definition of what love is.
Yeah,
So, you know, initially his definition of
good
it
premise for a
is
book.
his family and his close friends. He loves his family and his close friends. And he's introduced to a man who is, you know, from this world's analog for the Middle East kind of area. And the man introduces him to the concept that love wears many masks. And one mask is the romantic mask. The love that you share with your wife. And another mask is the friendship mask. So the love that you have with your friends. And the other one is the family mask. But then there's this other... There's all of these masks that love can wear. And they all depend on the relationship that you have with this specific person. But behind every mask is the core of love. And it doesn't matter exactly what your relationship is with that person. You could be strangers walking on the street, and you can still have love for that person. It's just under a mask that you're not used to recognizing as love. And so it opens his mind to the fact that everybody around him has this sort of network of relationships, and that everyone in the world is to some degree connected in this network. And he's told to imagine himself and imagine connections netting out to all of the people he knows and cares about. And then he's told to look to this one person next to him and imagine his network. And imagine what it would be like for that person to suddenly not exist. And there's this hole in the world. And so it opens his mind to this idea that he doesn't have to know everyone really deeply in order to appreciate them and love them as a part of the world around him. Mm-hmm. Because he has contemplated what it would mean for a person to suddenly not exist. It would mean just as many people mourning them as if he was the person that suddenly didn't exist anymore. And it's sort of the idea that every one of us has people that we care about. Every one of us has people that we love. And
absolutely.
And things that make us us. And you can appreciate those things, even if they are not specifically things that you value in yourself or for yourself. You can still value those things that make other people them. The same way that you value the things that make yourself you. So it kind of helped me open my eyes to appreciating and loving other people for the qualities that I don't have in myself, and I probably don't even especially want for myself, but it's what makes them them, and I can appreciate them.
Yeah.
So those are two pieces of media that I wanted to bring up. The one that we are not all that different, and the other, you can appreciate another person for things that aren't necessarily in and of yourself. You can appreciate them for the things that make them them.
Yeah, I mean, that book hits really well with a lot of what we want to do, especially. I mean, we don't just want to make content. We want to make content that can help people become better people and help us become better people by doing it. I mean, that's the whole point.
Also, I mean, there's
it's not
sword fights and
guns
and like
that.
flintlock pistols, and there's intrigue. So if you want to check it out, it's a good book.
That makes a lot of sense, both those things. Uncle Iroh is a wonderful characteristic of that throughout the series. Won't spoil anything in case you're uncultured and haven't watched all of it.
What was interesting
just kidding, but it is a good show.
About the example of Uncle Iroh is that he also is a good example of what I was talking about, where you don't give up on people. Because the entire time Zuko is basically running from Uncle Iroh's love and affection, and he's rebelling without recognizing that he's rebelling, because he thinks that he's trying to do the right thing. And Iroh is saying, you're destroying yourself, and I care for you, and I'm not going to give up on you, but you're destroying yourself. And so Iroh fits that depiction as well of how we love people. is that we don't just give up on them even when they're doing things that we don't agree with, or that we know that they're damaging themselves. We don't just give up. We're not always in the situation. We're not always there. We're not always around. We don't feed into things that people are doing that are harming themselves. But we also don't give up on them either.
There's also the idea that
I mean, you look really clearly
Zuko better than himself, and that's another thing that love does. It's something that wants other people to be even better than you perceive yourself to be, and you want to help people to do that. I could talk about Uncle Iroh for days, really, but I won't do that.
We could write a dissertation on Uncle Iroh.
Yeah.
Here's my doctoral thesis.
I mean, it's pretty
about Uncle
clear
Iroh.
though. Like he not only he loves him, but like he doesn't just because Zuko wants to do something different, he doesn't want to listen to him. He doesn't stop loving him, and he lets Zuko do whatever he has decided is what he wants to do. He's not going to be like, well, I mean, he does call him stupid sometimes, but
only when he's really
he
being
doesn't
stupid.
like blatantly hate him for making those decisions. He waits for him. He understands that it's a process of going through this process of understanding, and Zuko's in a mindset of hate, and he gets transferred into a mindset of love, basically. But anyway, those are both two really great examples, Grant. I guess I kind of have two-ish examples. The first one would just be a song that's been playing over and over in my head recently, and that's the song by the Black Eyed Peas called "Where's the Love," and it was released in like 2004, I think. So it's got some date on it. It's got some age, but it is still very, very true, and it makes very clear that in the song through the lyrics that if you are giving love, then there will be no room for hate. And to me, that just it encourages me to try and look at what I'm giving out and try to not be hateful or negative, because it's so easy to criticize, and it's so easy to be critical of those things. And I think that song does a good job at kind of putting it out there. Now, there's plenty of songs I could go and listen to, but currently, like just what's been on my mind, that's one of them. And I think one of the other things, weirdly enough, thinking about it, I'm just sitting at my desk, so I have lots of Magic cards around me. And for Ben and I, one of the biggest social aspects of our hobbies has been the card game Magic the Gathering. We've been to many different states and played in many tournaments, played with a lot of different people. And one of the things that I always tried to do when I was playing was to be kind and to be nice no matter what happened. I didn't know anybody I was sitting with playing, but I got the opportunity to play with them, and while the card game itself isn't something that promotes like love or embracing one another, it allowed me to meet a lot of people that I wouldn't have otherwise met from a lot of different walks of life. And it really encouraged me seeing maybe some situations, people who are a bit toxic or mean or kind of just focused on winning. And really, it helped encourage me to make the most of these moments that I had in playing just a silly game with them, and being kind and being loving. So, yeah, I mean, pretty much those two things are really the 2 points of media that I'd say I've been thinking about when we talked about this topic and brought this up. I mean, pretty much, I have, music is huge for me, and channeling emotions and channeling thoughts and helping with those things. Like, in listening to Where Is the Love, it kind of just, it hits all the right spots for me, and feeling that what you really need with media, what you really need with media consumption and what you take in, and why so many people, why channels and YouTube, like the Instagram account and YouTube channel like Some Good News that John Krasinski's running, why so many people have clung to that and why it's blown up so much is because people do inherently understand that they don't want to take in negative things all the time. And that's why so many people diss the news and whatnot. But I think there's more important things to focus on, like the music you're putting in, the videos you're listening to, the stuff you're reading, all that kind of stuff. And social media is a big part of that. But Where's the Love hits that for me. It definitely communicates those things. And on the other side of things, in a totally different way, Magic the Gathering for me is a card game that like is an impetus for encouraging me in those ways. Because it gives me the situation, and it's a very controlled environment. It's a strategy game. You're trying to win. But like I remember in a tournament, some guy made a mistake, and technically at competitive rules enforcement level, which is super nerdy. But you're playing a competitive game, and the winner does get money. You need to follow the rules, and some guy did something, and it didn't change anything, so I let him take it back and do that, and he made another mistake, and I just I let him fix it. I could have been like, "No, I'm sorry, sir, you messed up, you must resolve it this way," and been just a jerk about it. But I was like, what's the point? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And he actually made the remark while I was sitting there. He was just like, wow,
you're ruining this guy's day.
So kind. Yeah, I mean, I didn't, I do my best to just be positive when I'm doing those things, and I really enjoy that. I love being positive the entire day, whether I'm losing or winning. It's fun, because I get to, I don't know, be a little positive light for those people. And that guy was like, man, you're like one of the nicest players that I've met here. I was like, well, everybody makes mistakes. Yeah. Those two things for me, and I love the example, especially that song in and of itself that you brought up, Catherine, is great. But tying that in with the Toy Story, for us, that movie was a part of our childhood, and also with, as Grant said, Avatar: The Last Airbender, also a part of our childhood, and they're just aspects and things, and it really makes me think about Brad Montague. And his whole campaign for being better grown-ups and being not being adults, but being grown-up children in his mind. That's kind of what it brings me full circle to, because most younger kids, little ones, when you're young children, you're more open-minded. The older we get, the more, I'd say, the more biased and opinionated and almost hateful towards things we can get.
In your example of the guy who was breaking the rules, a lot of times our reactions to people breaking rules is, well, you broke the rule and there's a penalty. And the whole point of Christ coming was to give forgiveness to us. And if we cannot share that forgiveness with people who have wronged us far less than we have wronged God, we've missed the point. And so it's probably something that makes us uncomfortable, and it's probably that's something that will keep making us uncomfortable, but it's the kind of comfort that is worth pushing through to find the better side of.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was playing, because I obviously haven't been playing recently, but when I was playing Magic in Indiana 2 summers ago, I was going every Friday just to have my social interactions outside of, because I was working for a congregation as a youth intern, which means basically all my time was spent at the church building, working with kids, working with the church. So there wasn't much, and I don't really know anybody because I'm not from where I was working. So I went to the Magic store, and it turns out I was sitting across from some guy, and he was asking me, something about what I was doing. I was like, oh yeah, I'm working at a church down the street for the summer, and all this other stuff. And he thought that was awesome, and he thought that was really good. And the next week, he came back, and he brought me two $15 cards, and just handed them to me, and said, keep doing the good work that you're doing.
Nice.
And I was just like, what? And, like, I was totally blown away, but, like, just in a moment of conversation with this guy, and he was a good player, too. Like, when him and I were talking about stuff, we were, like, at the top tables. Both of us hadn't lost. So, and it was just a casual environment. And, like, that's the reason why I've stuck with doing it, is because it gets me into situations like that. And I had conversations with one of my friends, Van, who's at the International Gospel Hour now. He was so down for going to tournaments and playing so that he could show love to other people, even if it's just through a stupid game. But yeah, I think we can do a better job of purposely interacting. It's so easy to, especially right now, like I've been guilty of this, especially in the pandemic, is staying inside, not interacting with anybody, and trying to find, I mean, you don't really need to find many reasons, because a lot of them are given to us, but to just not go out and non-interact. Because there's so much content out there that we can consume. But that gets to the other side of things with this, is you can consume good content and not get anything from it if you don't do anything. I never wanted the content I created in the 500 days to be just something that you watched and didn't do anything about. What the goal for Project Cornucopia would be is that you watch these videos, you see the things, and you yourself are inspired to go and do something beneficial for your own life. Because, I mean, if we're honest, like, that's why I want to create content, to make my life better by helping other people's lives be better.
I know that between the three of us, we could literally talk for a long time.
Yeah, I think we should call it time.
So,
absolutely.
The effort of keeping these much more succinct so that they're easier to listen to and easier to edit.
Yes.
This is, I think, where we're going to end this episode. But if anybody has any like questions for us, any topics that you guys would like us to talk about, feel free to leave us a comment in the comment section below.
Yeah, we can start like we could start like a sort of mailbag section.
Yeah, we have been talking about media because it's something that we all have experience with and have opinions, I guess, about. But we may not always talk about media. So even if it's unrelated, we do want to hear what your thoughts are. So, yeah.
Hit us up.
And then until next time, this is Catherine.
And I'm Grant.
I'm Zach.
Good talking with you guys. We'll see you next week to be discussed.
See you on the flip side.